Now, the After Action Review with Rod Rodriguez.
I'm your host, Rod Rodriguez, and this is the After Action Review podcast, episode 23. My guest today is Eric Hadley of GY6 Coffee Co. Check that mug out. So they sent me this really fantastic mug and 2 bags of award-winning coffee. Now, the cool thing about this business it's not just that it's veteran run. Not only do they sell award-winning coffee, and not only do they have amazing coffee mugs, right? But the proceeds from your purchase go towards a variety of charities for first responders, for military charities, for veteran charities. So every time you purchase from these guys, you're helping an organization help others. So that's a fantastic thing, and I got nothing against that for sure. Eric's story is really interesting because he talks a lot about some of the issues that can affect the beginning of a company and some of the negative things that can happen at the very beginning that inspire you to start your own company. Very rarely do you ever think, well, I'm on top of the world, let's go start a business today. Not typically. The story that I hear a lot of the time is I was at this point in my life where I didn't know what to do because the following negative circumstances were occurring, and I realized I had nothing to lose. So I might as well chase this thing that I have had in the back of my mind, and I'm just going to do it. So I know a lot of you right now are in that same boat. Some of you are sitting there, probably not the best time of your life, but you have this idea. And you're probably thinking, I have nothing to lose at this point. Why don't I chase this thing? And I'm telling you, you should. You can do it. I know anybody sitting at home watching this podcast, wondering if they have the ability to launch their business, if they can do it. And Eric's going to tell you, yes, you can. You can definitely do it. But first, you got to do a couple of things like cut some negativity out of your life, pull yourself up by the bootstrap and say, this is going to happen. And we get into that in this interview. It's a really fantastic couple of minutes with Eric Hadley of GY6 Coffee Co. Without any further ado, let's get to the interview. All right. My guest today is Eric Hadley, CEO of GY6 Coffee. Eric, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with me today.
Rod, I appreciate you and your time.
All right, man. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what is GY6 Coffee?
Well, my name is Eric Hadley. GY6 Coffee is a coffee company that I recently started. I think today we're day 106 selling online. What I've done is created a model to where we're selling coffee, and very similar to Paul Newman's Own. We're taking our profits after we pay the bills for the business and strategically plan for the future. We're taking our profits and giving them back to various nonprofit organizations that are geared towards helping EMT, law enforcement, firefighters, and veterans. I'm just trying to use the necessity of coffee and turn that into a catalyst to where I can do something positive within my community and my country. Awesome.
Now, I understand you're a Navy veteran. And
correct.
I know a lot of Navy guys are, they're into their coffee. Was that like the shift for you, or is that where you kind of got the idea like, hey, I want to do this coffee business? How did this ever come about?
So for me, it was to kind of give a little backstory. I graduated Maine Maritime Academy, took my commission, went into the individual ready reserves, inactive reservist. Graduated, went to work for Military SEAL Command. For those that don't know, MSC is part of the Navy. They do logistical support for armed forces out at sea, bringing various ships, food, fuel, ammunition, cargo, whatever, on those ships. I was an engineer in the engine room, running the power plants, keeping the lights on, the ice cream cold, AC working. For me, I went several years. I was averaging about 10 months a year deployed for about 13 years, and always told myself that I would stay doing that until I met somebody. I was a small town country boy. I'm from Paris, Texas, where I spent most of my young adult life, and started with MSC and traveling the world. And years later, I met somebody, made a transition shoreside. Took a job as a senior engineering consultant for the United States Coast Guard. I was working for the McHenry Management Group as an engineering consultant. A couple years late into it, sequestration was happening. I thought I was going to lose my job, so made a couple phone calls to friends that had been trying to get me into the oil industry, and I was pretty much literally like 3 phone calls later, I had a job working for Transocean. A year into working offshore, the oil industry took a tank. I spent the next 2.5 years watching large numbers of my coworkers getting laid off. To kind of put it into perspective, when I got hired with Transocean, they had a combination of drill ships and drill rigs. They had 98 drill ships and drill rigs when I got hired on, and when I got laid off in June of 2016, they were down to 28. So you imagine each one of those having a crew of about 500 to 700 people, depending on what you're talking about. It's a lot of people getting laid off, and was trying to find a job in Springfield, Missouri, which for those that don't know, it's landlocked. There's not a whole lot of water around there. And for somebody who spent his entire career on the ocean, found myself challenged with trying to find my next career. And with that, several months went by, you chew up your savings and start chewing into your retirement. So you just get to that point where you realize you got to do something for yourself. And when I had gotten laid off, I started taking a couple classes at Missouri State's SBTDC program, Small Business Technology Development Center, which is it's a grant-funded, essentially a business generator. Literally, as I'm going through these classes and exploring different ideas, I had the idea for coffee. There's 400 million people consume a cup of coffee every day in the United States, and that turns out to be 1.46 billion cups of coffee a year. And my mind, as I was picking up some coffee one day, I was walking through the grocery store, and I was familiar with Newman's Own, but things just didn't click. And so here I was with a bag of coffee, and I'm walking down the aisle and getting some spaghetti sauce, and I see Newman's Own, and you just kind of have that aha moment. I was like, why can't I do something positive? Because by that point I'd been laid off, and one of the first things I'd done was try to start this nonprofit. And in the process of doing the nonprofit, you need a board of trustees, and so I was seeking out mentorship and individuals that had nonprofit experience, and I was introduced to a retired lieutenant colonel Army chaplain who's widely versed in the nonprofit world. He had kind of gotten out and did the nonprofit thing and retired from that. And so I was talking with him, and one of the first questions he asked me, he said, do you have the financial means to go 2 or 3 years without a paycheck while we get this off the ground? The answer to that is no, I wish. So, it was at that point where I tabled the idea, put it up on the shelf, and started to look for a job locally. Couldn't find anything, and fast forward through all these classes and exploring the different entrepreneurial ideas that I had. Here I was staring at a bag of coffee and staring at a container of Newman's Own, and like I said, you have that aha moment. Right. So if I can capture some of that and give back to the community and make a difference, to me, it was a no-brainer.
Right. So it sounds like one of the early challenges you had in establishing your business was with time and money. It seemed like 2 things you just didn't have enough of. How did you overcome those challenges to get to where you are now?
The job search process, while it takes up some time, it's not all consuming. So I was exploring 2 avenues at the same time. I was looking for a job, and I was also attending these classes and going to these courses and meeting with counselors and doing some of the research for these various ideas I had. And, like I said, you just get to that point where, when you go through your entire savings and then you start chewing on your retirement, and you've spent many years building up your retirement. Yeah. For me, it was literally drop the boat, drop the oars, and start rowing rocks and try and make something happen.
So you had to use your own did you use your retirement money to kind of fund this coffee company?
Yep.
So how scary was that?
It's extremely scary. You get to that point where you you chew up your resources, and then you start, out of necessity, having to take some of your retirement to make ends meet, to keep the lights on so that you can take care of, for me, so I can take care of my son, and making sure that I can take care of him and be the example to him. So, in many ways, it's extremely scary, very daunting. I'm not going to lie, there's days where I'm still questioning myself, having those moments. But at the same token, the last year and everything that I've gone through has been literally the most rewarding, just because I see the impact, the effects that I'm having. And to that, like, I'm just scratching the surface on what the potential is on this. While it's scary, at the same time, it's something I keep having faith. I listen to a lot of motivational speakers and all that. And I mean, just with like everything in the military or anything in life, you just got to keep grinding away on it. So
there's hardship associated with growth. Very few people were sitting on their couch and they were like, yeah, I'll be honest with you, Rod, everything was going great. Everything was going great. Just got a raise. I had a lot of time. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to start a company. It doesn't work that way. If anything, it's always the more common story is I was about to hit rock bottom and I found inspiration in a cause, or I saw a necessity in the market and I thought, why not me? And maybe it has something to do with that attitude of, what do I got to lose at this point?
Yeah.
How much worse can it possibly get? I might as well go for it. But
yep. That's
cool though, because you're coming in with this perspective of, I can't really lose anymore.
Yep.
So
that's, I mean, you know how it is. Negativity is contagious.
It is.
I've sailed on a lot of ships in my time, and with military sea lift command, you've got an attrition rate of people rotating in and out. Mm-hmm. So many times I've been on a ship where life is awesome. I mean, we are traveling the world. Like I said, I'm a small town country boy. I've been to 59 different countries, traveling the world, seeing different things. Life is great, and all of a sudden, a key figure within the chain of command changes out, or somebody comes in and all they care about is bitching and moaning and complaining. And next thing you know, there's 2 people complaining, and then there's 4, and then everybody's having a horrible time. Several years back, I went through this process where I expunged anything negative in my life. I went through Facebook. If you weren't a positive person in my life, you were gone. If all your posts were negative, there was a couple people that I just unfollowed. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't getting fed all the negativity. And then fast forwarding that even to, like 6 months later, where I'd go through the list again and just see like, well, I haven't heard from you in 6 months. Goodbye. Just getting rid of the negative, getting away from all the negative.
Yeah. There's no ROI on negativity. There's none. There's no return on investment.
Nothing.
For negativity, not a bit. So you're inspired by Newman's Own, which is actually pretty cool. And there you are. So you create this, and I noticed the logo. Definitely an homage to your naval days. But the first thing somebody asked me when they saw it, they were like, "Are you in Hydra?" I said, "No, I'm not in Hydra." Tell me about that logo. Tell me about this octopus.
The logo to me is awesome. I had gotten to the point where I decided I was going to do this, and I started being in Springfield, where I didn't grow up, and obviously I don't have a support system there or friends. You spend so much time away. I realized that in all this training and everything, I needed mentorship. Mm-hmm. That was something that was provided through work and everything else, but here I found myself alone. So I reached out to a friend of mine he's a business owner of himself. He's a franchisee for an insurance agency. And I asked him for mentorship. And in that process, he introduced me to some people that helped me do the branding. And the branding process was interesting because they give you a sheet with a bunch of questions on them, and they asked me to provide colors that I liked, samples of colors, samples of pictures, advertisements that I like. And in that process, I gave them a bunch of photos, and of that, several of them were octopuses. And I had provided those images because of the artistic value. I've been kind of collecting octopuses in photos because it's most likely going to be my next tattoo piece.
Okay.
And so here we are in the process, and they review the information I gave them, and they're like, we keep seeing these octopus. Are you wanting that for a coffee company? And I'm like, while I love the idea of an octopus for a coffee company, I don't know how you're going to make it fit. And a week later, they came back to me and they said, well, hey, we think we have something. Your whole idea is service to those who serve. You're serving Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard, EMT, law enforcement, firefighters. So that's 8 different parts of the community. And in those photos that I sent them, there were several stock photos of somebody like lending a hand to somebody. They said, you're lending a hand to 8 different groups. The octopus has 8 arms reaching out into the community. And I was like, it was a winner to me.
Yeah, sounds like, I saw that. And first of all, I think your logo looks great. I think it went well with the coffee, the mugs. So here you are, you're how many years now have you been in business? Or
I made the decision to do coffee on November 20th of 2016.
Right.
The business was formed through LegalZoom on December 5th. And at that point, I was geared up towards doing an actual coffee shop. Fast forward from there till February, I'm having a meeting with my architect. And my architect told me that the reality is we wouldn't have a grand opening storefront until November. Here I was in February looking off into November with my wallet going, how am I going to connect the dots?
Right.
I would have enough money to make it, but then I wouldn't have the startup capital that I needed. And at that point I was kind of stubborn. I didn't want investors. So I was like, hey, I've got the coffee, I've got the brand, the websites are in the works. Why don't I just focus on the websites and get those up and running? So I decided that what I would do is I'm going to sell online. Because of that, I have a lower overhead, which allows me to give back more to the various nonprofits. And then I can take and kind of build up some capital and then circle back and do a coffee shop. And once I have a coffee shop, all my research there is just going to replicate itself.
So what are some of the challenges you're seeing in going from online sales of coffee and coffee mugs and coffee accoutrement, if you will, to creating an actual storefront brick and mortar business?
Well, for me, one of my biggest obstacles right now is I devoted many months towards doing research on businesses, and with that, coffee was one of them. And so I've invested all this time into research for an actual coffee shop. Having to kind of shift gears last minute, that's been one of my issues, is going back and kind of restarting the research process to do the online sales. I mean, I know the snapshot big picture, I know the margins and everything, and I know the overhead. So I know it works, but I like to understand the structure. I like to understand the big picture, not only in Springfield, in Missouri, nationally. So that's been one of my struggles. It's as if I took a hit to the chin and I'm kind of on my heels right now, just getting everything situated. And so up until this point, that was a big struggle of mine. I guess you could say getting ready to surf the wave again instead of trying to catch up to it. So
it sounds like right now, Got Your Six is in the middle of some choppy water, but that's interesting because we often catch a lot of businesses after the choppy water or right before, unfortunately, but you're kind of in the middle of it.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely choppy water, but going back to the being positive and having faith. And there's been, Rod, I couldn't even tell you how many times we could sit here and talk all afternoon on these little things that keep becoming indicators that are essentially communicating to me that I'm doing the right thing. As an example, the marketing side, I decided to push live with all my stuff. At the point, I had the websites were basically done, but to me, they weren't perfect. And there was a pivotal point for me where one weekend I drove down to Dallas, and on the drive down, I reached out to a friend of mine that I hadn't talked to. I sailed with him on the Shasta. Hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. Let's catch up. So we're catching up, and he tells his story. I tell my story. Once he hears my story in my direction, he opened up to me and told me that one of his best friends, one of his brothers, just committed suicide back in December. Fast forward 2 days later, I'm talking to my mother. They live up in Pennsylvania. They've got a small country winery. And as I'm talking to her on the phone, she says she's got a customer. She put the phone down. And when she came back, she was emotional. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I just feel bad for this young woman. Her husband committed suicide on Wednesday. And at that point, to me, I think that was individual 8 and 9 that I could point to within a 14-month period. It burned inside me. I was like, something has to change. This is, too many people that I either know or know of that are committing suicide, or that I know that are struggling with stuff. So I pushed everything in. I went live. And a couple of weeks after that, I get asked to be part of the Springfield Coffee Festival. And it was kind of last minute for me, but they asked me to participate. It goes towards Safe and Sober, which is a nonprofit geared towards underage drinking. And so to me, that helps police officers. So I was like, yes, I'd love to be a part of that. Last minute for me. They had 6 categories. I entered in 2 of the 6. And I ended up walking away. I won Blue Line, won Best Medium Roast in Springfield.
Oh, wow.
Zero Dark 30 won Best House Blend. And so that was awesome to me. That was in itself spoke that, hey, I'm doing good. We're on track. When they went through, it was literally the first award, the second award I took, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then the 7th one is Springfield's best coffee shop. And I ended up winning the best coffee shop in Springfield, Missouri. And that to me was like a testament to what I'm doing, because at that point, even now, I still don't have physical brick and mortar. Just there's so many little things that God's definitely got his hand in the mix, and he's helping me and opening up doors. And, and at the end of the day, we'll just be plain simple about it. I'm an engineer. I'm not a coffee guy. For me, coffee was, and to that, when you're on a ship and the main engine blows up on you and you're spending 5 days trying to fix it and you're doing 20-hour days, that's when I did coffee. It was, 3 scoops, hit the button, drowned it in cream and sugar. But with that, as I get into it more, I see a lot of the craft beer, wine. Coffee is the next thing, because it's artisanal. There's an art, there's a science. At the end of the day, it's just like wine. Like I said, my parents have a winery in Pennsylvania. The making wine is not hard. You just have to know how to do it. There's key steps that you've got to do, and then you get to play with those variables. It's how much sugar, how long do you let it ferment? Do you cut it? How do you store it? What temperature? Coffee's the same way. You've got to source a quality bean, and then you've got to manage your temperatures, your airflow, the rate at which you're heating stuff up, cooling it off, how long you're letting it do it. So that part's awesome to me. But like I said, there's so many things that are just...
When you're letting your passion drive your business, it takes on a new element, doesn't it? You didn't jump into this looking to make millions of dollars as a coffee guy. You came into this with the passion to help people.
Right.
And the vehicle is through coffee.
Right.
So it's interesting because now you're seeing all of these spots and gaps in not necessarily the marketplace, but in your cause, helping people and saying, wait a minute, that's the reason I'm here. You hear this story. That's why I'm doing that. That's why I'm doing that. And it's feeding into the passion for this coffee. I can see that. I can hear it in your voice. And I think the story of Got Your Six Coffee is remarkable for all of those reasons. For a veteran sitting at home or in their car right now, driving back and forth to their 9 to 5, who has an idea in their head, a nonprofit, they have a passion for a cause, they want to do something with it, and they're just not sure what to do. What's your advice to that person right now?
Do what your passion is. It was nice traveling the world and all that kind of stuff, and getting a nice paycheck and being able to have fancy things and everything. Money doesn't make your life. If you're interested in starting a business, take the time. I mean, find the largest university closest to you and reach out to them, because I promise you there's some kind of program similar to Missouri State's Small Business Technology Development Center that you can go and take a simple class. Like for me, I took a simple intro to business, and because of that, I was now in that network, and I was accessible to having them assist me with some research and providing me with information and mentoring me and teaching me that, hey, I might not be strong on the accounting side. Well, they can help you. Don't let that what if or the fear of, I don't know how to do it. I've read many audiobooks over the last year and a half, and the different, if somebody is a mechanic and they decide to go start their own automotive shop, they're going to do that with a level of complacency. I know how to do this, and they're not going to be hungry for it. If you go into it and you don't know what you've got to know, you've got to learn, and you got to learn quick. And that motivates you. And when you're backed into a corner and you know that this is what you've got to do to make it work, you got to do it. Just follow your dream. Don't spend time. If you're unhappy with what you're doing, find what makes you happy.
You just got to do it, right? You just got to actually do something. And one of the things I just finished writing a blog on this, actually. Just press start. You got to press start on your ambition, on your dream, on your nonprofit or for your profit. You just got to press the start button. And for some people, it's as easy as buying a URL. Just buy the website address, or buy that coffee grinder and say, look, this is the coffee grinder that I'm going to use in my coffee shop. This is step one. I just did something. And you just keep, what am I going to do next? Do the next thing, and do the next thing, and do the next thing. But Eric, I want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk with me about coffee, talk about the direction that Got Your Six Coffee is going. I want to thank you for this amazing mug. This is really cool. Everybody in my office was like, dude, I want a mug like this, because it's like beautiful stone. It's got this fantastic logo. So thank you again. And I really appreciate everything that you're doing for the veteran community, for the law enforcement community, for the firefighters and EMTs. I think it's a noble thing that Got Your Six Coffee is doing.
Well, I appreciate it, Rod. Thank you for your time, and I love the platform with what you're trying to do, and help other veterans get out there and just follow your dreams, make a difference.
All right, man. I will be talking to you very soon.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, guys, that was Eric Hadley of Got Your Six Coffee. Guys, check out the links below. Go buy yourself one of these fantastic mugs. Get yourself some award-winning coffee from Got Your Six Coffee Co., and you'll feel really good. Not only are you supporting a veteran-owned business, but you're also supporting all the different charities that Got Your Six Coffee Co. contributes to. If you don't or you can't make a purchase right now, that's fine. Go to their social media, like them, follow them, because every time you follow and like the social media for a veteran-owned business, you're telling the possible partners in the future for this business. You're telling potential investors, hey, this business is worth your time and effort. That's one of the ways you can show your support for veteran-owned businesses. Go down, like and follow them. And while you're at it, make sure you are liking and following the AA Hard podcast. All right, guys? So make sure you are subscribing. All right, click on my face, subscribe to the After Action Review podcast. That's it for me.